Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, all right. Now this one. Ooh, this episode here. This episode here is definitely controversial. No matter how you try to sweeten it up, this is one controversial topic. Even for the demographic that is all for this. That even for the demographic that this is about. This is one of the most controversial topics of the modern day and age. So, I'm gonna do my best. I just think what the angle that I want to take it's definitely I believe it's different than most how they're gonna take it. So, and I've talked to this demographic I've talked to this demographic before, and also seen a lot of like their insight on what goes on with their experiences. So I definitely feel like my input is definitely not gonna be on the far extreme side. It's just gonna try to meet everybody in the middle somehow. But if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about where am I at? I'm sorry. I am talking about the T community. You know what T is? They're part of the minorities, but it's a big T. And I ain't afraid to say it, they're transgenders, okay? So, what does it mean? I feel like a lot of people do know, but let's define what transgender means. I don't know why. Okay, let's see. New Oxford, American Dictionary defines transgender as denoting or relating to a person whose gender identity does not correspond with the sex registered for them at birth. Yeah, that's the most simple, plain out definition of it is. Okay, that's pretty much what it is. I can go on Wiki. A transgender person, often shortened to trans person, is someone whose gender identity differs from that typically associated at birth. Same thing. Okay. Two definitions that say the same thing, then that's more than likely going to be the definition that mostly everyone uses. And even Merriam-Webster says the same thing, gender identity differs from the sex identified at birth. Okay, that's 3. So, at birth, make it simple to put an example. At birth, one was a trans person was a female at birth and now identifies as a male. Okay? Their identity identifies as a male, and it's not exactly. It gets very weird, it gets very hard to understand for some reason. I know a lot of people aren't really trying to understand them, and that's their right to remain ignorant. But for me, I just want to see, I feel like I should know this stuff. I've always been able to tell the difference, at least the earlier versions of trans people. It was very easy to see them and point them out, and they would always hang around certain clubs at certain times. In certain places, they had their certain safe spaces. But now it's just a little bit more blurry because of a lot of people getting involved who I believe should not be getting involved at all when it comes to the trans identity, because a lot of people are claiming to be trans, and they're not. I'm just gonna say it just like that. They're not. Some people who are claiming to be, but they're not, and I feel like it's not a great thing to do. Okay, I'm gonna get into that because that's pretty much the main point that I want to do. But if you don't understand what transperson is, this is definitely an explicit episode. Okay, so in back in the early days, since it wasn't that much defined, very much defined, there guys they were always grouped. Transgenders were always grouped into one thing, or even there's just a lot. I'm gonna just go through what I'm trying to say. So I used to think transgendered and hermaphrodite was the same thing. Technically, no, and intersex as well. I've got I've been explained to it exactly what the differences are. Not gonna lie, I still don't remember the difference, but I will. This is what the internet is for, right? This is why I look. You can look things back up if you really don't understand it for real. Okay, I have no idea what that is, but okay. So what did I say? A transgender is what? A person whose gender identity differs from what they were assigned at birth. Okay? Now, hermaphrodite is an animal or plant. Let's not forget humans are animals too, so this is what I'm getting from Merriam-Webster. Hermaphrodite is an animal or plant because there are human hermaphrodites is what I'm really referring to, but we're just gonna take the whole definition as it is. Animal or plant having both male and female reproductive organs, structures, or tissue. An organism exhibiting hermaphroditism. Okay? So that's what it is. A human hermaphrodite is a person who exhibits both sexual reproductive organs. That means penile, the penis, and the vagina, okay? Together. However that matches up, okay? I used to think that and a transgender person was one and the same. They are not. Okay, now let's go to intersex. Actually, let me go to an LGBTQ website. I know they got these things a little bit well more defined than just, well, nah, let me just keep it at a simple level right now. And we'll go from there. Okay, so intersex. Intersex is a general term used for a variety of situations in which a person is born with reproductive or sexual anatomy that doesn't fit the boxes of male or female or male. Sometimes doctors do surgery on intersex babies and children to make their bodies fit binary ideas of male or female. Interesting. Okay, so intersex, hermaphrodite, transgender, all three different types of people, all three different experiences, or even more experiences, but yeah. So intersex, this is what the clevelandclinic.org says. People who are intersex have genitals, chromosomes, or reproductive organs that don't fit into a male-female sex binary dynamic. I would put dynamic right after it, but okay. Their genitals might not match their reproductive organs, or they might have traits of both. Being intersex may be evident at birth, childhood, or later in adulthood, or never. Ooh. So that, or never, then how would you ever know? Okay. Many people who are intersex can get pregnant. Hey, if you was already thinking of something like that, there's an answer. This is by PlannedParenthood.org. You can look more into this. Here's one. Are intersex and hermaphrodite the same thing? As I just mentioned before, I said no, but let's see what news-medical.net says. Hermaphroditism, also referred to as intersex, sounds like the same, is a condition in which there is a discrepancy between the external and internal sexual and genital organs. It is grouped together with other conditions as a disorder of sexual development, DSD. I mean, there's a lot of active people asking these questions, so let me just start looking down through it. Has a hermaphrodite ever had a baby with themselves? In the literature, pregnancy cases that developed through self-fertilization were not reported in humans. However, autofertilization was detected in mammalian hermaphrodites such as domestic rabbit. Furthermore, the ovarian tissues of true hermaphrodites were mainly functional and ovulatory. And this is from the NIH. It's a government website. What's the NIH? Let me give you. The NIH is the National Library of Medicine and National Center of Biotechnology Information. Okay, government website. Peer reviewed. Okay, so now that that's been established, I think that's it between those three. Yeah. Anything else is just not really what we're talking about. So, let me go to like a LGBT website. Let me see. Is an acronym. LGBTQ. I don't care about AI. Let me go to the. It's supposed to be okay. Here we go. LGBTQ website, an organization. So defining LGBTQ plus the center, gaycenter.org. All right. So we got the common identities. I'm not gonna go through all this. I'm mainly looking for transgender. So what do they have to say about transgender? Hello. Okay, where was I? Right. On the gaycenter.org, the LGBTQ website, what do they define as transgender? Let's just say they say an umbrella term for people whose gender identity and or gender expression differs from what is typically associated with the sex they were assigned at birth. People under the transgender umbrella may describe themselves using one or more of a wide variety of terms, including transgender or non-binary. There we go. That was the other term, non-binary. Some transgender people are prescribed hormones by their doctors to bring their bodies into alignment with their gender identity. Some undergo surgery as well, but not all transgender people can or will take those steps. And a transgender identity is not dependent upon physical appearance or medical procedures. Yep. I think that's how I wanted. That's pretty much where I want to say. It says, I'm gonna come back to that last line that I said, but they also got what is questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity, intersex, and an adjective used to describe a person with one or more innate sex characteristics, including genitals, internal reproductive organs, and chromosomes that fall outside of the traditional conceptions of male or female bodies. Do not confuse having an intersex trait with being transgender. That's the main confusion that I think a lot of people had growing up without actually really knowing. Intersex people are assigned a sex at birth, either male or female, and that decision by medical providers and parents may not match the gender identity of the child. Not all intersex folks identify as being part of the LGBTQIA plus community. Fair enough, right? Right. And okay. Asexual describes a person who does not experience sexual attraction. Sometimes it's shortened to ace. It is an umbrella term that can also include people who are demisexual, meaning they do experience some sexual attraction. Gray sexual, meaning those who may not fit the strictest definition of the word asexual. And aromantic, meaning they experience little to no romantic attraction and or has little to no desire to form romantic relationships. Okay. Non-binary. The adjective describes a person whose gender is not male or female and uses many different terms to describe themselves. Others terms include genderqueer, agender, bigender, gender fluid, and more. None of these terms mean exactly the same thing, but all speak to an experience of gender that is not simply male or female. And the plus is used to signify all of the gender identities and sexual orientations that letters and words cannot yet fully describe. Okay. So, let me circle back to what I was saying with the transgender thing. right? Not all transgender people can or will take those steps, and a transgender identity is not dependent upon physical appearance or medical procedures. Now, my biggest point today, this is what is really this episode is all about, is people pretending that they are. And it's really hard to tell. I mean, we can just accept it for what it is. I don't have a problem with that at all. There's no problem whatsoever with people choosing their identity and living how they want to live. There's no problem with that at all. But I just don't believe a lot of people are doing it for the right reasons or doing it for any good reason that actually benefits them. I think for the most part, they're trying to do it just to benefit them and not actually do it because that's who they are, who they feel they actually are. That's just how I see it, because why are you believing that you are something like that, but you really are not? I feel like a lot of people who are ignorant are not actually taking the time to get to know themselves and just sticking with whatever is trending right now. And that could be right now under this umbrella of trans people. Since it's not dependent upon physical appearance or medical procedures, how do you even define trans, to be honest? I think I'm gonna end in a question. I think that's where it's gonna be headed for this episode. The question is, how do you even determine if somebody is trans? Like, how is it, like, it doesn't seem like there's a clear-cut definition on that. It seemed clear at first with all the standard definitions for it, but in this on this website, gaycenter.org, the organization says not all transgender people can or will take those steps, and a transgender identity is not dependent upon physical appearance or medical procedures. Well, how can you know fully if they are trans? It just seems like if you can just accept anybody like into the trans community and they didn't actually have those experiences that made trans people, it seems very dishonest, and it doesn't seem like it makes any sense. That's just what it is. From a logical standpoint, it does not make sense if there is no sort of quality. I'm not saying all transgender people are the same, because they're not, but they most likely share a common characteristic. That's how you categorize things. That's how people get in. That's how we make that's how we create demographics. That's how we create categories. That's how we understand, through shared experiences. Through shared experiences and having that common characteristic that you all have would group you guys all in as trans people. I'm not understanding why this kind of blurs the definition. It doesn't show a fine line between who is trans and who is not trans. I'm just very confused. I'll look up. This is why I'm looking into it more. Let's see another definition, or let me just ask the question. Okay. How do you know? All right. Reject all. Now, get up on my face. Okay. Like this Planned Parenthood.org. It's saying, I asked the question, how do you know if you're transgender, right? And Planned Parenthood said, you're transgender or trans if your gender identity is different from the sex the doctor assigned to you at birth. Okay. For example, you may be transgender if you were assigned male at birth and know you're a woman. You also could be transgender if you were assigned male or female at birth and know that your gender identity isn't man or woman. Okay, so how do people figure that out? This might help people at all. I might be helping people with this. Here are some things that may help you understand your gender identity, including whether you may be transgender or non-binary. Write or draw about how you feel on a regular basis. Notice if you experience gender dysphoria or gender euphoria. Do parts of your body, words, or ways people treat you feel good or bad. Use a workbook on exploring gender. Read books, articles, social media posts about people who have explored their gender, or meet them in person to ask them about their experience with gender. Do their stories feel true for you too? Share with others. Talk about your gender identity with a close friend, family member, or teacher who you trust. Join a safe and welcoming group to share and ask about gender. See if your school has LGBTQ plus student groups, or if your community LGBTQ plus centers have support groups, a group that's specifically for transgender people, non-binary people, and people exploring their gender may be most helpful. Talk with a counselor or therapist who is familiar with and trusted by the trans community. Imagine what it might feel like to wear different clothes, use a different name or pronouns, or have changes happen to your body. What feelings, fears, or hopes come up when you imagine these things? Experiment in safe and interesting ways. You can explore your gender identity and gender expression with simple and temporary things like trying out makeup, a new outfit, or a different name. Okay. Here's a question that's posed. It says, what if you're struggling with your gender identity? It can be hard to challenge gender norms. Go at your own pace. Notice how each change feels and know that you deserve to be safe. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I just gave you guys probably a good people, all the trans people out there. If you're actually gonna listen to this episode, I think it's important that you find out who you are, find out what you're most comfortable with, and just do what you need to do. I'm not losing any sleep at the end of the day if you choose to be whoever you want to be. That's not for me up to decide. I don't pay too much attention to that. I was just very curious on what these things are, and I'm kind of curious about the statistics on it, because I don't know. Even though you guys are really, really, really small minority, especially in the world community, not even 1%. But yeah, it's still something to think about, because my mind I'm just very curious. I'm just a very curious person. That's all. And I just wanted to see like how the statistics would work when it comes to that, because it seems like with the definition that Planned Parenthood said, which matches the definition of the three definitions I shared at the beginning of the episode, which makes sense. And then it just really doesn't follow gender norms or societal norms, however you want to put it or see it or can best understand it. So listen, I'm trying to understand what really the statistics, like my biggest thing is the statistics people are pretending. My biggest problem for people who do not have really the shared experiences of being trans are claiming to be trans just because they think it's fun, it's trendy. I don't think that's very nice at all. I think that's actually pretty messed up, that there are people out there willing to take on an identity that they know that isn't theirs. Like, why are you taking on an identity that you know it's not yours? It's not yours at all. And there are people who are really struggling with their identity, their gender identity. Listen, that's just me. I really do not understand why you would want to do that. I kind of have assumptions about it, and there's just assumptions at the end of the day, but I still don't think it's fair to those who actually struggled with their identity, get played around or have people in who are claiming to be the same thing, or in that same category of trans and non-binary, in those aspects, and actually be lying about it. It's very weird to me. I don't get what do they really get off doing that for. I mean, yeah, I really don't know. I really want somebody to answer that, to be honest. I think that's just I don't know if I'll ever get that answer to it, but it's always something I thought about ever since, like, I've seen a growing trend of it, which is weird because I've seen people claim something else and this, that, and the other. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with your identity, or, figuring out who you are. But if you're lying to yourself, if you're just being delusional, that's where the problem lies. And you should really not mess with an identity that you know isn't yours, and leave it to the people who actually feel that way. I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to say. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say on this episode. I don't really have nothing else. I think everybody should love who they love, be who they truly want to be, and actually know and feel that this is exactly who they are, and don't pretend to be anybody else but yourself, because you are a unique person. You need to be as unique of a person as you are, because don't be like somebody else. Don't join the bandwagon. Don't join the trend. Be who you are, and be who you are fully. Fully express yourself in that way, in that aspect, however you see it. Okay? Because if you're out here just pretending to be somebody else and you know that's not your identity, if you're not an actor or somebody who does improv or impressions, I suggest you seek some help, because that is very unusual and it's not really sane. That's all I wanted to say, honestly. So you guys drink some water, hydrate yourselves, exercise if you can. I mean, you can. There are ways to exercise, even in a small room. There's exercise you can do. Exercise. Love people who love you. Trust people who trust you, and be a little kinder. Shout out to all the trans and non-binary people and all the people trying to figure out their identities and actually claim to be this identity. And all the people who claiming to be it, but they know they're not, you're terrible. But I want to end on a good note. So yeah, shout out to all the trans people and the non-binary people who are, figuring things out for themselves, figuring out their identity, and and those who have figured out their identity, good for you. Have a good night. Night. It's not even nighttime. I don't even know why I'm saying that. It's like afternoonish time. It's afternoon. We in the afternoon, y'all. Have a great rest of y'all day. Everybody. All right? See you later, Gator.